hospitals. When you visit the restaurant, you first tell them your ailment. The menu lists the dishes under the disease they cure. Some are general tonics that increase the yin, like duck with caterpillar grass. This is not to everyone's taste. The garnishing is an insect, real caterpillars. The manager is pleased to explain things to new customers. Some of the customers find the dish faintly disquieting, but the idea of yin and yang is as familiar to them as anything could be. It's curious for a Western visitor to find caterpillars or fungus or snake on a restaurant menu. It's even more of a shock to visit a modern hospital down the road and find displays of stuffed monkeys. These specimens seem fit for an alchemist's cell rather than a hospital. But none of this is a surprise for the Chinese. There's a hospital of traditional medicine in every large town. Medical students are taught that everything on this table will add yang to the body's balance. Iron filings, sulfur, horseflies, monkey brain, dried body of leech, alligator, anteater scales, even hedgehog skin. Among other things, they seem to increase blood pressure, alleviate rheumatism, and help prevent bladder disorders. It's easy to scoff at Chinese traditional medicine. After all, what can hedgehog do for rheumatism? But many Western cures were once derived from natural substances. It's not as strange as it seems. In the last 20 years, experiments at medical institutes in Shanghai have isolated potent extracts from traditional remedies. New birth control drugs like Anordrin and Gosipol have been successfully developed from plants. Naturally occurring anti-cancer agents have been isolated. Some of the old cures really work. Laboratory chemistry is nothing new to the Chinese, of course. It was developed over 1,000 years ago by alchemists searching for the elixir of life. From the chemical experiments of the alchemists came one of the classic inventions of China, gunpowder. This is a replica of an early rocket-assisted arrow, designed around the time of the Battle of Hastings and used by both sides in the Chinese-Mongol Wars. The invention of gunpowder was evidently an explosive accident. Alchemists were fond of mixing up sulfur and saltpeter in their attempts to achieve immortality. Some achieved it sooner than they'd intended. Some say the Chinese used gunpowder only for fireworks shows. Not so. This is a 13th century design for a kind of V-2 rocket. The bird projected itself over the enemy, then fell down to earth and exploded in their camp. Nowadays, things like military rockets are dealt with by the ministries of machine building in Beijing. Other matters which might have interested ancient alchemists are pursued in places like this, the Institute of Biochemistry in Shanghai. They developed the world's first artificial insulin here in 1965. Recently, a nucleic acid, which is biologically active, tRNA, was synthesized by this team. This bioengineering work rivals any in the world. But Chinese science is still not entirely the same as Western science. In spite of advances in Western medicine, they're still building new hospitals of traditional medicine in China, and patronage of them is still increasing, to the point where some hospitals find it hard to cope with demand. The Chengdu Traditional Hospital deals with 1,500 patients a day on average. 60 doctors are on call, and everyone gets treated in large communal groups. No private consulting rooms here. People can choose whether to be treated at the Western-style hospital or in this one. It's a matter of taste. They surely wouldn't submit to traditional treatment if it didn't work. The question is, how does it work? For example, how can it help rheumatism in the leg to put hot jars on the back? When you push a needle into a little girl's arm, how is that going to help her stomach? A traditional Chinese doctor sets out to understand the whole human being who confronts him. This man's problem is his leg, or so it would appear initially. But he's under stress, not helped by the time it took him to register earlier on and get an appointment. Although the final treatment will be local and often very much to the point, the initial approach is to the well-being of the whole person. Is he well? Does he look well? Chinese medicine sees the human body as a complete organism. The mind and the body are not separate. That's particularly true of acupuncture. Here, a 90-year-old grandmother is about to have an eye operation. The only anesthetic, 2 vibrating needles. While she's still fully conscious, a cataract will be removed from each eye. Some Westerners say that acupuncture is a theatrical effect, like dressing up in white coats. It's auto-suggestion. The patients just think they feel no pain. But ask yourself, would you allow a scalpel to slice into both your eyes while you were fully conscious with no painkiller? The operation is a complete success. With the patient still conscious, the doctor is able to ask her, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And she's able to answer correctly, after being blind for 5 years. But there are still doubts about acupuncture in the minds of Western scientists. So the Chinese have developed some disarmingly simple experiments to prove their point. They paint a heat-absorbing liquid on a rabbit's nose. The animal is suspended opposite a lamp, which is then turned on. How long can the rabbit stand the heat of the lamp on its nose? Six or 7 seconds on average. Now, a needle will be inserted in the rabbit's hind leg at a place that roughly corresponds to a similar point on the human body. Sorting out the pain-killing acupuncture points on animals is not easy, but you soon know if you've been successful. With the needle, the rabbit lasts not 6 seconds, but 12. To understand how and why acupuncture works isn't easy. It's based on an understanding of the human body that goes back at least 1,000 years. Models and charts have been developed to show how mysterious energy lines join the primary acupuncture points. This simply makes no sense to Western doctors. But one thing is significant. Most of the points correspond with important nerve junctions, as we know them. It may be that acupuncture needles stimulate one nerve, which in turn overrides the pain signals coming in from another. In China, however, they explain it differently. They say that energy is meant to flow freely between our various organs and limbs. If yin and yang get unbalanced, then the energy flow is blocked. Cupping with hot glass jars is meant to release the energy flow. This patient has a chronic bladder defect, so jars were placed near the kidneys, as you might expect. But in addition, a needle is inserted in the back of the patient's calf. According to the acupuncture map, an energy line or meridian connects this point with the bladder. A problem with the bladder means too much water, too much yin, and that can lead to rheumatism. To prevent that, a third point on the sole of the foot is stimulated with glowing cigars made from the moxa plant. This will add yang and finally bring the body back into balance. That's the Chinese explanation. The government prefers to stress the scientific basis of traditional Chinese medicine, but no one can deny that it's rooted in ancient philosophy. Above the doctor is a wall chart that reminds the patient of the connection between her energy and that of the cosmos. The message is that the same qi drives the sun and moon as drives her. Her yin and yang should be balanced as should the yin and yang of earth. Chinese medicine is based on the belief that man is indissolubly linked to the energies and rhythms of heaven and earth. To understand yourself, they say, try understanding the cosmos a different way. The Chinese believed that all parts of the universe were interrelated. They spoke of the body as if it were a landscape. Acupuncture points were given names like bubbling spring, penetrating valley, great mountain stream. So it followed that they saw a landscape as if it were a human body. The mountains were the bone structure, the soil was the skin. Rivers were blood vessels. One should respect the earth as if it were one's own body. Some places on earth, as on the body, had special power. These places were like acupuncture points on the body of the earth. The first brick pagodas in China, for all the world like acupuncture needles, were placed in one of these special points in Henan province. They believed the most favorable place to build a temple or a tomb was the point where the flow of energy in the earth was best balanced and therefore most powerful. Finding a good site to build a monument became an art, the art of feng shui. In communist China, it's now frowned on. But when the authorities reconstruct a temple, they take care to see that the original alignment is not altered. Some points on the map are said to have very good feng shui. This tree down the road from the temple has lived for more than 2,000 years. They say it's very well sited, just south of a great mountain. It shelters the students of China's oldest school, the Songyang Academy. For most of the last 1,500 years, pupils have been taught science and philosophy on this site. If a Westerner had been taught 1,000 years ago that the Earth had invisible lines of force underneath